I remember the very first time I felt like I hated myself. Someone in school back then had called me yam leg because the back of my leg was pretty big. And I feel like I was a pretty chubby child at that time. I wasn't entirely fat, but I had some weight. But I never really paid attention to it as crazy as I started paying attention to it after someone started calling me yam leg. And that lingered on in my life for a very long time because I started to hate my legs. I started to hate skirts. I would never wear skirts, even though the school back then forced us to wear skirts as girls, senior girls, secondary school. I would dread wearing skirts every day. And on Fridays, would wear trousers, like jeans trousers. And we had a particular school t shirt that we wear. That Fridays were like the best days of my life. And I started to have that insecurity in my life for a very long time, not wanting to wear skirts. Even after I graduated, nobody really got to call me yam leg outside, like life. It only happened in school. A lot of things happen to us in school or in our teenage years that makes us to hate something about ourselves. You hate your hair, you hate your nose, you hate something, but sometimes there's really nothing you can do about it because that was how beautiful God made you. But because of the opinion of every other person around us, we begin to see that feature in our lives as ugly and then we hate it. So I started to hate myself. I never really felt like I fit in. I never really felt like I was cool. I didn't have the biggest ass or the nicest features, whatsoever back then. And when you're growing, you kind of want to have that sort of validation from people. You want people to say, "Oh my gosh, you look good. You have some great ass." I don't know why that was a big deal for me because I was like, I really wanted to get in shape, whatever. But eventually, I did meet someone, a new friend, who joined the school later, and we became friends. And she also had some insecurities that people also trashed her for. Somehow, we trauma bonded and eventually became friends through actual normal bonding. It's so funny how trauma has a way of bonding people in various weird ways. Because imagine a group of people just making fun of you for something, and you're like, "Oh, they're making fun of you for that. They're also making fun of me for this. Oh my gosh, we must hate them so much." Okay, that was kind of like a joke, but we bonded over time because we started to have conversations about how these people made us feel, and we started to realize that, you know what, let's not pay attention to them because they don't know what they're saying. They're just a bunch of kids just like we are. And I mean, they're probably cool. I don't know why they have to make us feel less cool because we don't have a certain thing that they have. So I hated myself, and I took that with me into uni. Eventually I got hit with a very crazy hormonal acne in school, so I hated myself even more. I couldn't wear a wig. I couldn't go outside with my face like this. I would always wear a wig that had fringe, like a really serious fringe, and it would cover the side of my faces. And I would, let's just say faces, my face, and I would wear glasses. Not this kind of glasses though, glasses like medicated glasses. But I didn't need medicated glasses because my eyes are perfectly fine. But because I hated myself, I wore them every single day. They were so inconveniencing, but I wore them every single day. And then I graduated. By 400 level, that was like my final year. Somehow the acne started to clear. I was still left with black spots, which were crazy. I really wanted to get rid of everything. And I found this particular skincare product that started getting rid of the spots, and I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be so much happier. At one random day, I had finished a particular exam that I had, and I was walking back to my hostel. And this particular guy who I talked to every now and then, very chill, we were cool. We didn't really like each other, like, I like you, but we were very cool. And then he sees me, he's like, "Hey, how was your, exam? How's your paper? Blah blah blah." I'm like, "Oh, it was fine." I had the craziest, lowest self-esteem. I couldn't raise my head up. So I'm like, "Oh, it was fine." Like, I would literally be talking to you and I'm doing this instead of having my head up high. And I'm like, "It's fine and all." And then he goes and he's like, "You're actually a fine girl, Lou." of all, that actually hit me because I was like, oh my God, someone called me fine. I have never been able to sit down to do some sort of personal work that would have made me feel like I was a pretty girl. You know how people would say, oh, love yourself, remind yourself that you are this, you are that. I never knew any of the everything I talk about, everything I preach, all the positivity I speak about, I never knew any of it back then. So he said, you're actually a fine girl. And I'm like, I'm a fine girl? Bro. Okay. And I felt some sort of happiness at that moment in time. Now, I don't know if that was a feeling of love towards myself, but I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm pretty. Now, I didn't further chase him to give me more validation. Thank God for that. But it made me to sit with myself, and I realized that I had hated myself all of these years. And it took that boy's statement to make me realize that. So the things that had happened to me back then in secondary school had spiraled into my college days, into my university days. And it was about to spiral with me into life as well because I was already in my final year. I was almost done studying the craziest course in school, biochemistry, that I never really got to use ever. And that was when I decided that I was going to start learning what it meant to love myself. And the first point of contact that I ran to learn some of these things was social media. Now, a lot of people give social media a lot of bans, saying, social media is crazy, there are a lot of bad things there whatsoever. But social media helped me to start to understand what self love meant. Now, even if I may have found the wrong reason or the wrong definition or the wrong, you know, whatever of self love, it made me to at least start from somewhere. So I started to see self love meant, you know, giving yourself compliments, talking to yourself kindly, doing skincare, prioritizing rest, reading books, developing your mind, and a lot of other things. And that was when I decided to make a conscious decision to find out what love really is, and not even romantic love, because I had gone into relationships back then, not even knowing who I was, and not knowing how to love myself. And obviously, it would have affected the relationship that I was in at that time. So I made a conscious decision to find out what love really is. And it was such a journey. It was crazy. It was a long road because healing is not linear. But a lot of times, the line will go so down that you find yourself going back to those moments where you hated and then you start reliving it all over again. Those things happened to me, but I tried to allow it because I couldn't force myself to heal fast. I just had to take it one day at a time. So I started to love myself. Now, this is kind of sounding like a poem because at first I was saying, so I hated myself, so I hated myself, so I hated myself. And now I'm going, so I love myself. Then I love myself, and I decided to love myself. And I love that it is going that way. Gradually, I made one other conscious decision to practice it. It's one thing to understand what something is, it's another thing to practice it daily in my life. I remember the very first time I wanted to become a minimalist. I even said I wasn't going to love colors. Imagine putting myself in such a crazy cage. I said I wanted to only like neutrals. And I would not lie. I loved neutrals for a very long time because I decided that every time I saw the color pink or blue, I'll be like, no, 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 no. I don't wear those kind of colors. But that was just a mindful decision that I made. One random day, I wore a color blue dress. And I went, oh my God, this dress looks so good on me. Why don't I like colors? And I sat with myself in that time. I started to think why I didn't like colors. And then I realized that it was just a conscious decision I had put in my head because I saw a lot of other people who were minimalists who just felt like they only wanted to wear the color beige, white, black, brown. There are also other minimalists who wear colors. Why didn't I go that route? I don't know. I just chose the one I wanted to choose and I went with it. The point of what I just said now is that sometimes we make conscious decisions or unconscious decisions that walk with us for the rest of our lives. And if you do not come back to make an unconscious decision again to probably let go of that thing or change your path or change trajectory, you're gonna remain in that sequence or in that sequel whatsoever. Trying to speak some English right now, and the English is betraying me, but you're gonna remain there. You get the point. So I started to practice it, and it was one of the craziest slash hardest things I feel like I ever did. But it got better, day after day, week after week, year after year. I started to love myself. I started to see that I love plants. I loved colors. I loved the sunset. I love my family. I love my siblings, and I love my legs. A lot of times, when I see breakouts on my face, I get traumatized by the hormonal crazy acne I had back then. But this is part of life. Pain is almost like a constant. There will always be something crazy happening to you. But it's up to you to decide if you want that pain to elevate into suffering or to just be subsidized into knowing that it is a part of life. Finally, I had to learn this the hard way, but I decided to start countering things when people said things that were not true to me. Imagine someone coming to you and saying, "Oh my gosh, you lost weight." And I'm like, "Yeah, I lost weight." This is me being proud of being going on that journey, losing weight, or for you, it could be gaining weight. For me, it was losing weight. And she says, "Oh, I you lost weight. Were you sick?" I'm like, "No, I wasn't sick. You did it yourself." "Yes, I did." And then she ends the conversation by saying, "Ah, I don't like this kind of weight loss." And then I counter it. "I like it." That was what I said. I was like, "Yeah, well, I like it. I love it. I love the way I look right now. I feel great about it." Things like this happen to us almost every single day, but we do not counter it when it happens. And a lot of times we forget that words are seeds that are sown into our lives, and they settle and they sprout, they grow and turn into something else unconsciously without you even really recognizing it. So whenever someone says something to you, you have to counter it. Countering it or accepting it, when you keep quiet, it's almost like you've accepted it. Like, oh well, you've accepted that whatever the person said was true. And you know what's funny? If I didn't counter it, I could have gone home and felt like, am I skinny? Like, am I looking horrible now because I lost weight? And then it might have made me go into a phase where I would feel unhappy because I went on a weight loss journey, something that I wanted for myself. This has been the greatest form of self love that I have ever practiced because a lot of people will come around saying things to you that are not true. And the truth is, you cannot stop them from saying those things. You cannot hold them back from releasing their opinions. But you have every power to respond to that. You don't have to react and be like, "Oh my God, get out. Are you crazy?" Da, 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 da. Nah, bro. You don't even need to do all of that. But you're free to respond in a way that protects you and elevates you at the same time. So I started to love myself. And it has been a journey, a really beautiful journey. And I was getting ready to head out right now for some pizza or ice cream. I don't know. And I just felt like sharing the story. If you watch this video to the end, you might have realized that the title says how to hate yourself, but in reality, what I'm explaining is how to not hate yourself. So there is an invisible not in the title. And I hope you caught that. I love you. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Claire. I hope you subscribe. Subscribe if you're not, and I'll see you in the next video.